Hi guys, I'm coming to you directly from Mars. Oh no, wait, that's not me. That was Mark Watney in The Martian. Welcome back to another book versus movie. I have done The Martian, written by Andy Weir, and the film in which Matt Damon plays Mark Watney. So, this book versus movie is going to be very short. I have done a more in-depth blog post on my website, christygrayscarletpen.com. So check that out if you want to see, more random in-depth thoughts of mine. But to get the gist, we're looking at The Martian, the book and the movie, what was different, what was the similar, what was better in which format, and which one was better overall. So, I'm going to give you the highlights in this video. Again, if you want more of the in-depth thoughts and analysis, check out the blog post. But here we are with the basics. So, book versus movie. The sequence of events was a little bit different. If you don't know what this book slash movie is about, it's essentially a guy named Mark who ends up getting stranded on Mars, and there is all of this discussion on how he A, survives, and while he is waiting for them, and B, how do they rescue him in the best timing before his food, runs out. So it's a good story, it's a good film. I will say that, yes, so the sequence of events is just a little bit different. The book starts out with Mark basically saying he's screwed. It's already happened that he accidentally got, left there. Whereas in the film, we actually see sort of more chronologically of like, oh, they're already there and we're going to watch it happen. I understand why the film did that. No real qualms about that. I just really loved the grab you moment of Mark is already screwed on Mars in the book, and it just really grabs your attention like right away. Another thing that I noticed, this book is really funny. Okay, so Andy Weir, if you haven't read his books, he is quite funny in the way that he writes. He's also, because it's a science fiction, sometimes the science can be really intimidating if you're not really a sciencey person, but Andy does a great job in making it very accessible and really understandable. So I will say that he's very funny and he is very scientifically based. And he combines this in this really, really great way. Mark's character was actually so much more funny in the book than he was in the film. He sort of relied, I would say, more on gallows humor, or humor in like a terrible, terrible, awful, really stressful situation to just get through it. And in the film, it was a bit more, Matt's performance was a bit more dry, and it was a little bit more like a dry humor, not dry humor, rather than outright being, just ridiculous. Just the Mark of the book is just so funny. But he also had a lot more seriousness behind his joke. Like, you could feel the gravity of, he's saying this joke and it's funny still, but also you could feel the gravity of still his situation and Matt's performance, and that was really well done. But I just sort of lost some of the humor that you felt in the book, and it made, even though he's like trapped on Mars right now and there's all this life-threatening situation happening around him, it was still funny and lighthearted somehow, and they went more on the serious route in the film, which is totally fine, totally a film choice and valid. I liked that. In terms of the film, it worked for the film, but I did miss some of the humor that we got from Mark and his character. It's really interesting because this movie goes for a really long time. It's like 2.5, almost hours, and still they cut so much from the book. Like, that always happens with books. You cut things out to try and fit it all in, but a lot of what we cut out was the amazing explanations of what the heck was going on and how Mark was doing things and how he was fixing it. We got a little bit of that, but we really lost a lot of it, and that's where we saw a lot of Mark's humor. So theoretically, that could be why we missed some of it, really, because we weren't going through those processes with Mark. This book, it's really interesting. The book was really focused on Mark Watney. Just so, majority of what we were reading, the story we were reading, is focused on Mark, right? And so what I found was in the film, we had a lot more broad involvement. So we focused a lot more on the crew who was, with Mark that had left. We focused a lot more on NASA and the people who were trying to rescue Mark. The book just had so much more focus on Mark, whereas in the film he was more like an ensemble character. So he was more like, instead of being main character, definitely the object of this story, he became one of the players, and that was fine. It worked well for the movie, but I just feel like we lost he's a Martian, technically. You want to be technical about it, he's a Martian. Like, he lives on Mars at the moment for like a year and a half or whatever, however long. And we sort of lost it a lot. And so we did still focus on Mark, obviously we did. But yeah, there was just less focus on him and more focus on everybody else. And I can understand that, because from a storytelling perspective, it gets very boring for people to stare at one individual for the majority of the movie. It can be done well. It can be done very well, as a matter of fact. But I understand the choice of why that was done. And the last thing that I will say is the endings for the book and the movie are slightly different. So while the book took a more realistic approach on how that event would have affected Mark, the film sort of went with more of a Hollywoodized happy ending. I'm not saying that Mark's ending was horrible. It was not. It wasn't. But there's a lot more of a psychological impact in the book and what we see with him after than we do in the film. And the film is like that more Hollywood happy ending type of an ending. I will say it was really great to see what happened with the rest of the characters and sort of how they ended up. The book does wrap that up, but it was nice to see it in person. There's just something that a movie can do with, music and the visuals and an actor's performance that brings not only like really nice, beautiful, warm depth, but also like life and death. Like, it makes it so much more obvious. So look, book and movie both had their good points and low points, but which one wins? I would say the book really easily wins for me. It was funnier, it was way more interesting, and yeah, I just think it was just the better of the two. Although I will say I liked the film and everybody did a great job, so props for everyone in the film. But just for me, if I had to pick, it was the book. Thanks for watching, you guys. If you liked this one, give it a thumbs up, but otherwise, let me know in the comments, have you watched the movie, read the book, have you done both, what were your thoughts? I'd love to hear, because I'm just one person. So let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you in the adventures.